you really want to break down running into kind of three things: preparation to do strength, doing strength to prepare for speed, and doing speed to prepare for stamina. That's how you don't want to jump to stamina. You don't want to jump to speed. You don't want to jump to hills, even though most of you listening already do that.
How's it going, Coach?
Hey, the power might be off, but the podcast is on.
Wow, that is a dedication right there, man.
That is, and you know, the ability to have an office I could get away to. Yeah, I was at home. It's a rainy, nasty day. Allie's still sick, so I just kind of been hanging around the house, make sure she didn't need anything. And about 5 minutes before we were set to record, bam, huge storm, wind gusts, the whole shebang, and the power was out. So hopped in the car, make sure Allie didn't need anything, headed over to the office, and we are back. So hey, thanks for your patience, thanks for being flexible, and Crushing Iron Podcast 317.
Yep.
I got my trusty podcast counter here at the office, so it makes my life that much easier. Shout out Robbie Krausen for the podcast counter. But yeah, 317, and we appreciate you joining us today.
You keep that thing up to date. It's manual too.
Yeah, I know.
It's not even a digital.
I know. Yeah, that's Krausen upgrade 2020.
No, he's a craftsman.
I know he is. He's crazy with that kind of stuff. But yeah, welcome. Appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time, go back, dig a little. We have 316 other podcasts that you can listen to. We cover all things triathlon, life, training, how they intersect and intertwine. Mike and I are both athletes ourselves, and I've been coaching full-time for going on 3 or 4 years now, and then as a kind of, I guess most people call that a side hustle, as a part-time coaching for over 10 years, and Mike just this last year. And so we try to do our best to not just share our personal experiences and what we're kind of going through and the growing pains and the obstacles and how we overcome those, but then also it's obviously very advantageous for us to have such a library of unique athletes that we work with, and that they all have different experiences and nobody is alike. So it's a great sample pool for us to kind of be in tune with that, and then kind of use that as a sounding board, if you will, to cover topics, and just allows things to come to the top and cover a wide variety of things. So yeah, we appreciate you tuning in, and hope you enjoy today's podcast.
Yeah, man, connecting with athletes. That's what we try to do, whether it's our athletes or athletes around the world. I had dinner with one of our athletes last night, man.
Did you? Who'd you have dinner with?
Kim Coffee, and we went to they came through on their way to Ironman, Florida.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, brought the family. Awesome family.
Oh, man, Travis. You went out with the fam, huh?
Yeah, hung out with the fam, and she's doing Florida this weekend, so we just they stopped kind of a break on their way to. They were going to stay over last night somewhere else. But, yeah, popped in.
Where'd you guys eat?
Some place here in East Nashville, new place. It's
Of course there's a new place. What a shocker.
But, yeah, so 2 high school kids, great kids that don't know who Prince is. Never heard of Prince. That was making me feel... well, I'm old anyway, but some things make you feel old, and that was one of them.
Little purple hazy is how you feel.
Little purple hazy. No Purple Rain ever heard in their life. In fact, he was listening to it at the table last night, and he said, man, what a terrible beat.
Oh, my God. Oh, the things we have to endure with this next generation. It only starts there.
Yeah. No, it was fun. It was nice.
Did you stay up late and watch the game last night?
Yeah. I did. I watched the whole game. I've never seen anything like the visiting team winning every game of the World Series. Yeah,
that's crazy. So much for home field advantage.
Yeah, and I'm sure Hayden was bumming that the H is lost.
Hey, I didn't watch a lick of it. I didn't watch a single pitch. Well, listen, man. We got downstairs, and obviously, like, Hayden had this really cool experience. If it's like your first episode, but we got to go to the stadium last week, which feels like 6 years ago, and hang out at the stadium and kind of go behind the scenes before Game 2. And he's into baseball. He's not. I would say he's a baseball fan. He's 3. He doesn't know what I don't think being a fan is. But I will say that I put him in the shower with me last night, and he was wanting me to pitch to him, and he was the catcher.
In the shower?
Yeah, in the shower. Yeah, he wanted to catch. He's fascinated with the catcher because he wears a mask. So he was kind of confused that why it isn't. He thought the catcher was a football player because he wore a mask, and so I had to kind of explain to him why the catcher wears a mask. And so he was using this little small rubber-like stingray that he has as the baseball, and it was like humming it at me. I think I've got like 6 bruises on my leg from him just like rocketing it like 6 feet, like 3 feet away from me, basically. So then we went downstairs and we were watching some of the pregame, and he was getting super tired, and he was like, "Yeah, I want to go to bed." And I was like, all right, I'll go upstairs, put him in bed. And by that time, I mean, I would have enjoyed watching. I was super tired. I haven't gotten a lot of really great sleep the last few days. But
you haven't either?
No, I haven't. I've gotten, like, not good sleep at all. But yeah, so I didn't watch a lick of it. Allie stayed up and I think watched a lot of it. She wasn't feeling too well. I couldn't really sleep, so she watched a lot on the laptop, and I tried to sleep. But yeah, if he would have stayed up, I would have watched it with him. It's kind of something I really only get excited about when he's watching it, because it's interesting to watch him kind of evolve and learn things about sports and ask things. And but yeah, he wanted the H's to win, as he proclaimed last night as they were kind of going through the little pregame stuff. But yeah, crazy that's how it ended up. But it just goes to show you can't, you can think one thing's a home field advantage, but it's about who shows up, who makes the plays, and who don't make the plays. So
yeah,
congratulations to the Washington Nationals.
Congrats. I've been proclaiming all along, this is one of the best. Houston is one of the best teams I've seen since I've been watching baseball, and they just couldn't get it done. Kind of crazy.
That's what matters. Yeah, it's
all about talent.
No, and I got to give a shout out. I was having this conversation, and we'll get back into triathlon, as I can't believe everyone's spending this much time on baseball. It just shows how I've matured and evolved as a person, that I'm actually willing to have this conversation. But I was talking to this with Chris Scandred, Summer's husband, in Houston, and we were talking about, I think he was talking about Bryce Harper, and I said, it's really impressive to me, even though it shouldn't be impressive, it just is, to watch and kind of not really follow, because I'm not a huge baseball guy, but I'm aware. Like I know sports. Just because I don't follow doesn't mean I don't know about baseball and about sports and follow figures and stories. And I just said I thought it was really incredible how Strasburg has kind of gone about his business. Mm-hmm. It was drafted in 2009, and was like the LeBron James of baseball, and had all these expectations heaped on him. He's going to be the next big thing. And you see a lot of people this day and age, like, that goes straight to their head. They become more about the show and what they're supposed to be as the next big thing than actually doing the work required and being quiet and being humble and working hard and being committed and loyal. And to see a guy like that stay with the same team for all these years and then come back as the World Series MVP, I think is just I think it's a cool story. I think it's admirable, and I think it says a lot about him as a person and not just an athlete. I don't really know him obviously as an individual, but you never see anything about him off the field. You never see anything written that he's a bad teammate. I think it's a good lesson in staying your course and not looking for excuses or looking for a way out or asking and demanding for trades. And I know in the past he wasn't super pumped about his pitch count, as they were kind of protecting his arm, and I think they even cut him short a few seasons ago. I know a lot about this guy.
Yeah, you do. I think it was his rookie year. They were on the way to winning it all, and they just shut him down.
Playoffs. Yeah, they shut him down. Which again,
it's the long play, man.
It's the long play. So yeah, again, I think I really appreciate stories like that, and always like to see, I guess, quote unquote, on the outside, good guys that are committed and stick with it and seem to be either they are very process oriented, or even though I've got to imagine through turnover that a lot of the people who made those decisions for him earlier in his career to go on pitch counts and shutting him down may or may not still be with the organization. I would have to imagine that last night, even if they're watching at home, they can feel like they had a part in getting him there and hopefully guiding him on a good path. So yeah, I think it's a cool story. And again, congrats to the Washington Nationals.
Yeah, and on the other side note with Bryce Harper, I just wish I was not this kind of bitter about stuff like that, but I was kind of actually glad to see him win it without him.
That is you. You're like
wait,
on the sly bender.
He went from Washington to Philly, and Philly's a great sports town, tough sports town. And
you got to have thick skin to be in.
Yeah, Philly. And had it kind of going on. He who was the face of the franchise, had everything he needed, and he just, for who knows, maybe in the course of a probably $400 million contract, who knows, whatever it was. He decided he needed a little extra money to go to Philly, and then he goes away, and then his team wins it all the next year. And I just think there's something to that. And of course, it wasn't because of that necessarily, but
you never know, man. There is such thing as addition from subtraction.
100%. 100%. So all I kept thinking about was, I wonder what he's doing right now as they're putting that trophy in there.
Counting his dollar bills, probably.
Yeah, which is whatever.
Which is, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But hey, we digress. And as promised, today's podcast is how to not suck at running.
Yeah, just in time for me, man.
Just in time for you. I had a lot of text. I had a lot of text messages on Tuesday. They were like, "Hey, I'm all ears. When are you going to put that one out?" And this is like, we usually, like, one of the reasons people, I think, at least the feedback that we get is people enjoy our podcast because they're very conversation like. They feel like people are sitting in the room with us, that two buddies are hanging out with them, which I love. But for this podcast, because it's running, because it's so difficult, I've actually done a little prep work.
Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa. I've got my legal pad out. I got some notes. I got my pen. But before I even get started on it, running, I think, is a couple. I want to kind of make a couple of caveats before I go into this very deep. You may just want to, like, lean back, kick your feet up, untie the robe, let the silk boxers hang, and sip on your cup of coffee with butter in it, and kind of let me. Yeah, I may talk a little more than usual today, so I apologize.
Well,
running is hard. I know that's, and it is hard because even after I go through probably what's going to be 30 to 35, 40 minutes of content of how you should approach running that is proven, that works, that is simple, most of you aren't going to do it. And I tell you that because people are impatient. People think you can cut corners. People think that it's too simple. People are going to think that you need to add more speed work into it. People are want to skip from phase 1 all the way to all the way to phase 3, or they're going to start in what I'm going to call phase 1 much farther down the road than they're really prepared for. And then they're only going to do it for 3 to 4 weeks. They're going to get bored with the process, and they're going to do something new. So I'm just telling you this, and to be honest, and it's not that I don't have faith in everyone. Well, that's the truth. I don't have faith in everyone.
Well,
but
no. You
can't. But most of you that are listening right now, as excited as you might be with this, most of you, I promise you, aren't going to stick with this.
I just read a book, I just read an article that said 90% of people who pick up sort of self-help books or any kind of books that are going to teach them how to do something or whatever, 90% of them don't get past the first chapter.
Oh, for sure. And listen, I've said this for like a year, is that the reason that hacks and, life hacks, biohacks, athletic physical hacks are so popular is because they don't work. That's why they're so popular, because they don't work, and because they only take you 2 weeks. And so after that, you go and choose another one, and then you choose another one, and then you choose another one. So that's why it's so popular, and that market is booming, is because people can't keep their shit together for long periods of time and do something sustainable. That's why, like, you have 19 different diets and 48 different, 2-week cleanses and all these kind of things, because people just can't stick with them. So the attention deficit, it's like athletic attention deficit disorder, like, is just rampant, and that's why they're popular, not because they work, because they're popular, because people can't seem to stick with something. That's why they're popular, because people need as many options as they can, because they need to fail 19 times before they can figure out something that sticks. On to running. A couple caveats before I get started. We have to always remember as well, if you're not, and again, like, I coach a lot of runners. I coach runners every year that their only goal is to qualify for Boston. I coach, obviously, mostly triathletes, and I don't really coach them differently. The same methods I use to coach runners, I use for the most part to coach triathletes. Now, where some of these things are going to differ, and where I think athletes need to be very aware, is that triathlon is a sport. You can't, and I see this a lot with athletes I begin to work with, and just had this conversation with an athlete the other day. Is I was looking back through their training, and I was like, listen, I got to be honest with you. You've been training like a runner who's just doing swimming and biking as cross training. You haven't been training as a triathlete. And you see a lot of athletes do that. You see that they bike a ton and they swim and they run very little and they swim very little, and they're really just training to be a good cyclist and cross training with running and swimming. Triathlon is a sport, and in order to undulate stress and intensity over the course of the year, you have to pick and choose and remove things every block, every quarter, certain parts of the season. So this may not look the whole way all the time. And again, it's about managing stress, and running for a lot of people causes the most stress, because it is a sport also where athletes can become the most injured, because it is the one that is the most impact oriented, whereas swimming and cycling, basically no impact. I mean, swimming, you're suspended in water, there is no impact. Cycling, you're on your bike, it's very minimal to, if any, impact. Running, however, is the one that puts the most amount of impact on your joints, your ligaments, your muscles, your tendons, your skeletal structure, and that's where athletes seem to struggle. And then you combine that with athletes' lack of creating a solid chassis that we talk about a lot in run durability, that they go and they start their run in a triathlon, in a race, or during like week-to-week training, having already stressed their bodies swimming and cycling wise, and now they're asking those same muscles and tendons and ligaments to hold up over the long time to support that skeletal system and work as a unit and not to break down. And that's kind of where I'll start off today. And so again, like this is a good outline. I'm going to give you as best I can the best way to set things up in a very simple way, because a couple of things before we even go into that is that most of you just don't run enough. It really is that simple. Most of you don't run enough. And there's a really easy way to say this, and people use it in a lot of different areas of life. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. And that goes with bone density and mass. Again, running is the sport that requires the most strength and durability of your body to withstand and not break down over a certain period of time. So we'll start with what I would consider phase one. This is without question, the most important phase you're going to go into if you're starting to kind of like build your own block, you're trying to do a marathon plan, have a marathon plan, is establishing where you should be for phase one. And if you're an inexperienced runner, or you're a beginner runner, or you've been super inconsistent, you need to commit to staying in this phase for 12 weeks. Minimum 12 weeks. Even for experienced runners, they should be at like 8. And the reason I say is because and again, when I go through this phase, most of you listening might not ever get out of phase one. Either because you can't sustain it for a longer period of time, or your body won't hold up long enough, or by the time you've built up the appropriate mileage, you're going to be ready to race. And this phase is to build durability, aerobic efficiency, and make you a better overall runner. It also, as we've talked about in loads of other podcasts and studies, is like the running in zone 1 or zone 2, or what people might call slower, is incredibly aerobically beneficial, but it also helps you in all other aspects of your fitness. It also helps you anaerobically. People can't wrap their mind around that, how running slower can make you run faster, but it does. It's part of how things work. And the reason that you're not going to see, what you're also going to see that's basically void from this first phase, is going to be any kind of speed work and any kind of strength work. You really want to break down running into kind of 3 things: preparation to do strength, doing strength to prepare for speed, and doing speed to prepare for stamina. That's how you don't want to jump to stamina. You don't want to jump to speed. You don't want to jump to hills, even though most of you listening are going to want to cheat. Most of you listening already do that. And the reason being is that if you really want to prepare your body to be able to hold the form, because speed only matters if you can hold it for a certain period of time. 5K speed means nothing if you can't go to a distance that's much longer and hold it for a long period of time. It means nothing. But most people won't do it. And again, the reason I'm anti-Track Tuesday is because your form is different, your stride is different. You're never going to go that speed in a race ever. You're never going to have that form in a race, except for maybe like the first 2 seconds. And you're going to do something totally different, and your body can't handle it. So 6 runs a week is where I kind of want to give like a general guideline. 5 to 6 runs a week. What I mean by that is, and this is going to be like a pen and paper time, is you're going to have to do some math. I know. Math, calculator, text instrument, whatever it takes. So if you're running, let's say you're running 3 days a week right now, and you're totaling, because I do this by minutes, not by miles, because minutes to me are always going to be king, because that's how you manage stress. Because minutes are always going to give you the stress you need. Distance, you could run 5 miles one day in certain conditions, and it might take you 60 minutes, and you run the next day 5 miles, it might take you an hour and 25, depending on the heat, the wind, the terrain. So it's harder to manage stress that way. That's why I love to go by duration. And so instead of running 200 minutes over 3 days a week, I want you to break it down to running 200 minutes over the span of 6 days. And this is how you're going to incrementally move your way forward. And in phase 1, what I generally like to see athletes do is you want to go 3 weeks up, and then 1 week going back to the first of the 4 weeks. So you're going to have 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks of build, and your 4th week is going to revert back as a recovery week to the amount of volume you did the first week. You're only going to increase from week 2, from 1 to 2 to 3, by 10% each week. Again, that's going to be incredibly hard for most athletes. Most athletes want to jump from 12 miles to 15 miles, when the reality of the situation is, if you're not doing something that most athletes aren't, which is limiting the percentage of your long run to somewhere under 35%, then you're doing these long runs that probably make up, like I kind of mentioned, I guess, on Monday's podcast, was an athlete that I was talking to, like her long run was 50% of her weekly mileage. There's a difference, people, in a adaptation and your body having to heal. When you do runs like that are so over the percentage of what your body is prepared to handle, you're not adapting and getting fitter. You're actually creating and doing trauma to your body that it's now going to have to take time to heal, just so you can smash it again in a week by going 4 more miles. And that's why you're going to get hurt, and that's why your subsequent sessions aren't going to be as efficient and as good as they could be. And so how you should break down 200 minutes is simple. Your long run should be 30% of your total weekly volume. So of 200 minutes, that's simple. And 200 minutes is 60 minutes. So your long run should be 60 minutes. So you have one long run that's 30% of your weekly volume. You need to have 2 easy or medium runs that are 20% of your weekly volume. That would be 40 minutes. And then the other 3 runs of your week I would call recovery runs, and those need to be 10% of your total weekly volume. Simple math here. 1 long run, 2 medium runs, 3 recovery runs. The math is simple. 30% for your long run, 20% for your 2 easy and medium runs, and 30% for your 3 recovery runs. That leaves you a long run of 60, 2 medium runs of 40, 3 recovery runs of 20. Bam, you've knocked out 200 minutes of running that week. That's going to be better for you than splitting it up into 2 60-minute runs during the week and then 180, because frequency is king and it builds durability. The next week, and again, this is going to be the hardest part for athletes, is only increasing your weekly volume by 10%. That means the next week, if we're doing 200, would be 220 minutes, leaving our long run at 106, our medium at 44, and our 3 recovery runs at 22. Now, that might not seem a lot as a bump, because a lot of athletes are used to bumping up all the time from 8 miles to 10 miles to 12 miles. But if you think about it percentage-wise, if you're going from 8 to 10 to 12, then in a 2-week span, or in sometimes like a 12 to 13-day span for your long run, you're bumping up your total long run by 30% in 2 weeks. And that's a huge jump. So bumping it 10% each time allows your body to recover. It allows you to feel like you can do it. It actually will hopefully make you fall into running, and you're creating a really aerobic base. Again, you're going to go from 200 to 220, up again another week, 10%, leaving us around, 242. And then that 4th week as recovery, you're going back to those 200 minutes. The math is the same. That would be what I would consider phase 1. And again, I can tell you that most people think, what's the use in doing a 20-minute run? What's the use in doing a 15-minute recovery run? Well, the key to it is that you need to look at the big picture. You need to be committed to a process. You need to understand how things work. And if you want to start that way in phase 1 and think that's not too much, well, if you stick to that, guess what's going to happen? 12, 16 weeks down the road, guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to be doing like 400 plus minutes a week, with your recovery runs going to go from about 20 to about 40. Your easy runs are going to be over now, and your long runs are going to be into the mid hour range to the upper, getting close to 2 hour range. That's when you start to create some like really crazy mileage. And again, without putting as much stress on your body and allowing your body to catch up to what you're doing. The key here is, though, and I can't emphasize this enough, is that it's not a requirement to bump yourself up every week. It's just not. Because if you're, and again, this is especially hard if you're self-coached, and a lot of times I think athletes even that I work with don't understand it, especially when you're incorporating swimming and cycling in the mix, and then life stressors, is that again, stress is stress. And so you can't always bump up the volume if you're also bumping up stress and intensity in swimming and cycling, and then expect your body to always adapt. Again, like people sometimes will treat triathlon like, I need to train individually for swimming, cycling, and running, and if I can train for them individually just like a swimmer, cyclist, and runner would, then I'll be perfect. That's not how it works, because the demands of just being a runner are totally different than demands of just being a swimmer, and then conversely are totally different from the demands of what it takes to be a triathlete and how you need to move around stress. So you might stay, let's say you work up to like 260 minutes, you might need to stay there for a couple weeks, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, because again, when you work out and when you train and when you overextend yourself, then your body has to heal. And so asking it to heal large percentages of increases over and over and over and over and over again, you're asking to be overtrained, you're asking to get sick, you're asking for your immune system to go down, you're asking to get injured, and you're asking to get burnt out. So it has to be slow and it has to be incremental.
That's phase 1.
Are you with me?
I am with you. I'm just
okay.
I'm trying to decide if I should inject questions here or thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
Because it's one of those things where I feel like, wait till the teacher's done and then you can ask a question. Because I'm going to answer that question. But no, I just like I love what you're saying about, people will always say, well, what's a 20-minute run? Like 20-minute run is like, ask people that have a red on Training Peaks, it's just sitting around versus running 20 minutes. There's a huge difference. I mean, that's like, a couple miles of running. Most people would never do that in a week. I don't know. I just think there's a lot more to that. And plus, it's just one of those things where you're just going to feel better to go out and run 20 minutes. So I don't,
Like, I think that's like the thing. Like, you should feel better.
Yeah,
like you should feel energized. Like, it shouldn't crush you every time, because again, like if you have that feeling of being crushed, then you're not doing it right. And
that's what I hear you saying. Like,
and like I got a message that I'm working with an athlete, just started with this specific athlete working on a marathon, and this athlete texted me, I think on Monday, and said, so I realize you probably get messages like this all the time, but your marathon plan so far is absolutely worth the price tag. I'm so shocked about how I feel running 6 times a week. I am loving running, and I don't feel like I have to run. I feel like I get to run. So not only are you
that's
getting
it right there,
that's it, man. And again, like that's not only, and that's again like when you go back to like our How to Not Suck at Swimming podcasts are incredibly popular. Like one of the things I talk about one of the very early on was that one of the reasons why I'm such a fan of the pool buoy is because it actually makes people love going to the pool and swimming because they can, right? And so it's like sometimes it'll be like, what happens, chicken? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? And with swimming, when you add the pool buoy and you allow athletes to go swim and not feel so trash and not feel so inadequate and not feel so terrible and overwhelmed every time they walk on the pool deck, well, now it becomes a more inviting place for progress to happen. Instead of dreading the trip to the pool, they now look forward to it and they find ways to do it. And then that builds consistency, which, as we all know, builds improvement. And this is a very simple way of getting yourself out the door. Dude, I can run 15 minutes. Like, I posted like a couple links and even a couple blogs that I've done about this, like way back. I posted them in our Crushing Iron Close Facebook group. But there is nothing wrong with like the best thing you can do is start out low. And again, like people who are studying this might want to like jump out to like, all right, I did a long run this week of like 40 minutes. No, that's not what your long run was. It was where you've seen yourself consistently be able to handle a specific load. Not, well, my long run was 40, so now I got to do the math backwards to make sure my long run was 40. Well, no, not if you only ran one more time that week. that doesn't count. Like, so you have to go back, you have to be patient, you have to be and look at what's realistic, right? And then again, this time of year is also a great time to do it because most of these runs you can just go out the door with just taking water or nothing. Shoes, run clothing, gone. Done, bye, see you later. It's not 98,000 degrees outside. Again, one of the biggest things athletes struggle with in choosing to not train or not have any structure, not have any purpose this time of year is I'll just wait till the season to get fitter. Well, you know what I want to do? I want myself personally and the athletes that we work with, and hopefully you listening, I want you to become the best athlete you can be by June. Pretty close to it. Because for most of us, once June hits, the temps are going to be 90s, 100s, dew points, 60s, 70s, 80s. It's going to be an absolute sufferfest. So now it's going to become so much harder to get quote-unquote better or quote-unquote fitter in that time of season, because now you're asking your body to not only just adapt your current fitness to the environment and the stressors that you have around you in terms of the heat and the dew point and the humidity, but you're also going to ask it to become fitter at the same time. So you're doubling down on demands of your body. Instead, get to work when to me, it's the easiest time of the year to run. It's the easiest thing you can do. You can always go outside and you're not going to be like, oh, that run killed me. It was way too cold. No, you're like, that was great. It was refreshing. It was quiet, and you're done. And then you get to the season, you're already 5 steps ahead of the next guy, in your tri club who you've got a little duel with, and he's trying to get fitter while the temps turn to 95, and you're just trying to, maintain your new 730s into 730s in the heat when he's trying to drop down from 9s to 730s in the heat. Again, it's all about stress and when you apply it. And most athletes wait too late and then expect their body to create an aerobically efficient engine and create speed amidst 72 dew point, 95 degree heat, crazy summer, and do it all at once. But again, that's what most athletes love to do. That's what most people like to do. We want to wait till the last minute, expect to throw it in the pot, give me the Cliff Notes version, and I'll just try to make something work. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Do I hear you saying, right, like this is phase one? This is for a lot of people, this would be a great time to be in this phase one?
For almost all people.
Okay. Yeah.
Almost all, not everyone, but almost all. And again, when I say minimum of 12 weeks, I mean minimum of 12 weeks. Unless you're someone who has like I've got athletes right now, I will probably put through something very close to this, who I would consider experienced runners who just went through like late season Ironman where they held up very well with longer duration runs. And so they might not need 12 weeks, but listen, no one has ever regretted being in, a phase like that, or what most people might consider that as a base phase for too long. You're injury proofing your body. You're creating a more aerobically efficient version of yourself. And I don't think anyone has ever regretted putting themselves through that phase for too long a period of time. It just, most athletes won't, because they will want to, I don't want to say cheat their way through it, but they'll just want to skip it. They'll want to go in and do something else. And so, again, it's a great reason to be in it. I would always, it's like, listen, like aerobic endurance is the foundation without which high-intensity training is neither sustainable or healthy. You can't just want the engine and not have the chassis, or your engine's going to look great in the garage while you're on the shelf from being injured. So spend the time, and again, if you can't do this for 12 weeks straight, don't bother with phase 2. Most athletes shouldn't even bother, even when I get to phase 2, even going past phase 2. Because of, again, I say this, it's very dependent on athletes who are doing longer course racing, 70.3 or longer, because once you get into, remember, triathlon is about all the stress, okay? It's about life, it's about personal, professional stress, and it's about physical stress, and then you kind of splinter off of physical stress and you include swimming, cycling, and run stress. So you're really taking into like all the stresses. And again, when you have so many other stressors, you can't continue to beat yourself down in any one of the two without expecting one of the others to fail or regress. So once you've done that for at least, I would say 12 weeks minimum for most people, then you would bump to what I would call like a phase 2, and that would be taking one of your medium runs. Again, to recap, you've got a long run, 2 medium runs, and then 3 recovery runs. After you've gone through that, you could swap out and take one of your easy runs and one of your easy to medium runs, that 20% distance. Then you want to do is create one of those as what I would call like a tempo or a stamina, or even a stamina run, even like a threshold run. This would be like zone 3, which is basically to me like you're flirting with open marathon effort, which is intense. You've now earned your right to be in this phase. And now where hill training comes in, it's kind of like what I would consider kind of right in between phase 1 and phase 2. If you're an athlete who has held up really well, who has become very durable, and you've gone through 8 weeks of this phase of consistency, then towards the last, like maybe do 8 weeks of this phase 1, then the latter part of that phase 1, if you're doing like 12 to 16 weeks, then you take one of those medium runs, you turn them into a hill session. And I'm not talking about banging your body out on relentless hill repeats of 10. I'm talking like 3 to 5 hill repeats of 30 seconds to a minute at 5K to 10K effort, not pace, effort. And one of the things that hill training does that's so great for you is that and why it's oftentimes much better than even going to the track, is that it's a lot easier on your skeletal system because you're not pounding the flat concrete. You're going up a hill. You're working your posterior chain. You're engaging your hamstrings. You're engaging your glutes. You're working on your good form. It's for a short period of time, and you're working on strength without just the absolute pounding. Do these hill repeats and then walk back. So everyone wants to run. Everybody's like, it's like recovery intervals on the bike. Everyone doesn't want to make their active recovery low enough. They're too concerned with their overall average power. No, it's about how fast you can go on your hards that makes the biggest difference. So go easy on the easies. Another gigantic mistake is that people, and again, this is type A athletes and type A people, is I got to find the steepest hill possible to do these on. 4% might be good. 98% hill is better. And so you see people go and like find like 10 to 12% gradient hills, and like, no. It's not counterproductive, but it's not nearly as productive as finding a hill that's 4 to 6, maybe at max 8% grade. Because you know what you can do in that? You can run it for longer, and guess what we're working on here? We're working on your form. You can't hold that trying to like tippy-toe your way up a 14% incline hill where you can barely break 10-minute miles or 13-minute miles as you tiptoe your way up to the top and your heart rate explodes. No, you want to be able to run it, and you want to be able to run it quick. So don't pick something that's just like insanely, steep just because you feel like steeper is always better. You see people on the treadmill do this all the time. Like you don't get awards for basically hiking. So you want to incorporate those hills in the latter part of phase 1 or in the beginning of phase 2 before you kind of dip your toe in the water of any kind of tempo or threshold sessions. Because as we elongate the amount of stress that you're adapting to your body, we want you to be able to handle it. We want you to have a little bit of strength, a little bit more power, and you've obviously been creating that durability in the chassis over the last 12 to 16 weeks that's going to be able to support the speed you're about to help create. Again, you can create speed if you want to. It's going to last a minute, but if you can't run with it in long-distance sports, it means nothing. It means zero. It means your fastest run is probably going to be from T1 to the bike. This is where I would, again, remove a medium run to something that's more like a tempo, stamina, or threshold. Again, this is where I can't get into too much detail because the duration of those intervals is just going to be wildly specific. It's going to be really based on the athlete, where they are, and what their fitness is, and what that stressor is going to be. Now, here comes the kicker. Let's say you've worked your way up to, I don't know, for easy math's sake, we'll call it, let's say you've worked your way up to 400 minutes by the end of phase 1. Your weekly volume that you can do comfortably without breaking down is 400 minutes. That gives you a long run of something very easy, a long run of 2 hours. Well, as you go, and again, these are all easy runs, maybe a couple hills, mixed in. So what that also does is it makes your easy runs an hour and 20. So most people are going to think, all right, going into phase 2, I got 400 minutes. That leaves me an hour and 20-minute run. I can probably smash like 40 minutes of tempo in there. Well, what they really want to do is they want to keep increasing. So the next week they want to go from 400 to what? 440? Because we keep increasing by 10%. Wrong. This is where a lot of athletes, if they even do commit to running enough, are going to make another huge mistake. Is you're going to enter this phase, you're going to think, all right, now I need to add speed and volume. And we talked about this before, and I think I touched on it maybe a couple weeks ago, is that now is actually a great time to scale back. So you might want to go from 400 minutes and maybe let's go to 320 minutes a week, because now what you're doing is you're making that long run just over an hour, and some hour and 20. But if you talk about, athletes are frequently obsessed with training stress score, how you create stress in a workout. And we use examples like 2-hour easy rides might create a stress score of 100. But if you go ride very, very hard and do a lot of intervals, you could have, for like an hour and 10 minutes, you could almost have the exact same stress score. So again, it's not about just the math, it's about the numbers within the math that get you to where you want to be. And so phase 2 is where I would actually move back in actual weekly volume, because what are you adding? You're adding intensity. Mm-hmm. You can't add 2 stressors at once and not expect something to go, I don't want to say wrong, but something could go wrong. And so you want to scale things back to where you're probably going to be running less overall weekly mileage, but it's going to be harder. So the stress of, let's say you get up to like 45 mile a week, a 45 mile week, that's six runs, and they're all super chill and easy. That's going to get a stress score that's probably equal to or even less than a week where you do 34 to 38 miles, but that includes 4 to 5 miles of really, really hard running. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, for sure. It's the difference between waking up and realizing you had a hard run versus waking up and wondering if you did run the day before.
Right, exactly.
Right?
So
that's kind of how I judge it too.
Yeah, and again, like it sounds too simple, but yet people will bypass it and do too much, and I don't know. I would say become a little bit too excited and again, athletes are kings of this. Is feeling like if they take like a few weeks back that they're going to absolutely lose all their fitness. But again, it's I think it's just one of the things where you have to acknowledge what's going on. And again, when I say people shouldn't go past phase 2, I mean that. Most people, for doing long course racing, like, you really shouldn't go past phase 2. And the reason being is because now you're going to be creating so much stress, and you probably will have peaked in the amount. Again, peaking with specific and singular run volume as just a runner is incredibly different, and that's why it chaps my ass sometimes when athletes like to take articles from single sports. Swimming, let's be like a Michael Phelps. Biking, let's be like Lance Armstrong. Running, let's pick this random runner who only runs and can't even swim or bike, and they only know and train for the demands of running. Let's apply that directly to triathlon because it's the same. No, it's not the same. Like, there are so many other stressors that have to be acknowledged, and again, like that's such a huge reason why you see athletes underperform and get injured and overtrain and waste their time, is that they have no idea how to incorporate all 3 sports together, and how you move things around, and how you're able to adapt stress, and how you're able to make things appropriately challenging, and you're able to keep people healthy. Like, that's where people fall short. And so the reason I would say most people who, like, I don't think I've had like maybe 2 athletes I've ever worked with who have gotten into what I would consider like a phase 3 in training for long course racing. And that's because they have a gigantic engine, their body's insanely durable, and the amount of volume that they can handle is a lot more, and they get a lot more done within that time than other athletes. The only people that other kind of move into like what I would consider a phase or sometimes are runners. But so that's phase 2, and you should also be in that for basically another 8, 12 weeks. And again, so if you add those on top of it, you're looking at like 20 to 30 weeks for an athlete. They're probably not going to get out of that, which is totally fine. Run frequency is king. Okay? Run frequency is king. Because what it's also not doing is sacrificing your ability to also improve in the other sports. Because if you want to go out and smash yourself on the track, the next day you're not going to be able to get up and have a quality swim, and you're definitely not going to be able to hop on the bike and do well. Probably within 48 hours. Mm-hmm. You're going to be shredded, right? And so again, like, you just have to walk yourself through the minefield that can be running and its stressors, and do it intelligently, do it patiently, and do it over time versus trying to get all at once. And again, that's why you see so many athletes that have these like long runs that are so insanely long, that are 50% of their weekly volume, never get faster. They just get either, well, I wouldn't even say better at going longer. They probably haven't hit the wall to where their body's like, I can't do this anymore. You're beating me into the ground. I can't heal up. Right? Your body just can't heal up for going 14 miles one week and then going 16 or 17 the next week, when it's going to take you 2.5, 3 hours to do. And then you also want to run in the middle of the week. Like, no, break it back down and take it piece by piece, and try to build it over 7 days versus trying to build it in 2.
This track workout thing again. I just think what happens is, like, it's like anything else. You go in there, you start a new something, whatever it is, and you start seeing these, improvements. And what I think people don't realize is that, yeah, you could probably do a little track workout once in a while early, and then, but it's such a long term. Like, I've seen so many people just like, well, what do you think? I'm injured. What do you think it was? Oh, it was a track thing. So it can go like, for a little while. It's deceiving, I think, in that you just kind of go in there and you feel like maybe you can get away with it 1 year or something like that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things. Like, if you're in the right place or whatever, but how many people have referenced track works as their injury source? It's just unbelievable to me. So I think that it's just important to recognize that, yeah, okay, maybe that is a way to get faster quick, but it isn't a long-term solution for anybody.
But yeah, and listen, they look fun because you can be fast for a couple 400s, but your 400 again means nothing if you can't hold it for the last 3 miles of your race.
Yeah,
it means zero. It means zero. If you can't have a body that's capable of doing it for long periods of time. In phase 3, like, I'll dabble in it because some people get to it, and that's where I oftentimes, and some people get to like I consider like a version of this, like phase 3, :1 is, as I have athletes like move through like the latter parts of 70.3 Ironman training, like the next part is to, like, not just to have a long run, 3 recovery runs and 2 medium runs. Is now what I will often do is remove one of the medium runs and then make one of the other medium runs longer. So you might have like a long run on the weekend, and then your middle of the run week, instead of being an hour tempo run, I might make it an hour and a half. And so but that's really dialing in as you kind of get closer to what I would consider like your race specific phase, and someone who can again handle it and then where they are. But again, where is everything else in your athlete cycle in terms of how is your swimming is progressing? And again, like this, like I'm not like saying all these things as this should be your gospel, but these are great places to start. But this is also why you see so many people struggle, is because they treat triathlon like 3 individual sports, but it's not. It's all stress. And that's how you have to move things around. You have to be flexible. You have to pay attention. You can't just continuously beat yourself in the ground over and over and over again. You got to be willing to go lower. You got to be willing to go lighter. You got to be able to stick with it for the long haul and make things work down the road, instead of trying to get it all tomorrow. Because if you get it all tomorrow, you're just going to have it for tomorrow. You're not going to have it in 8 weeks, because you're never going to get there. And you're not going to do the things required. They're going to allow you to benefit from having. You see the guys that jump up from from ITU racing, short course like sprints, Olympics that do Super League, and ITU racing and Olympic distance, like they can get by and do really, 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 really well at the 70.3 distance because they do that run volume. Like they already do that run volume. Like 13 miles to them, like even though they're running 6 on race day, they might have, like their run frequency is probably 7, 8, maybe even 9 times a week. So they can make that jump. But as you've seen like the last few years in Kona, you ask for an ITU guy who's got all the speed in the world to jump up and do full Ironman. You see like Alistair Brownlee got smoked. He hung in there for the bike, and a guy that arguably could run the fastest 5K by a long shot of any of the guys that raced. Any of them, I mean close. Just couldn't hold it. He couldn't hold form. He couldn't hold the durability. Now, whether you want to argue it was because he overcooked the bike, whatever. Javier Gomez, same the previous year. Like speed is only as good for as long as you can handle it. And so beating yourself in the ground and not taking into account the return on investment you're willing to put in, again, people just don't like that. Like that's why people prefer to gamble versus probably letting someone else invest their money and get slow but almost guaranteed returns over the next 1 to 2 to 5 years. They want the instant feedback, and they want that risk that's associated with a possible reward. But then they also can fall back and say, I just got hurt again. I've been hitting the track too much, and like, yeah. So quit doing it. But again, we've now become wired to want that instant feedback in total and 100% blindness of the fact that it's negating improvement.
Yeah, because we see somebody did it.
Somebody did it. Like, you don't even know who that Joe Schmo is. Like, this person could have like 15 years of high school, cross-country, collegiate running experience, and you see them busting out these great times in a local race, and you think, oh, dude, he's doing it, I got to do it. That's for me. No. You look at Michael Phelps. Oh, it only takes him like 9 strokes to get into the pool. Well, you know what? I got to really start working on my SWALF score. And I got to really focus on, how distance per stroke and how many strokes. No, Michael Phelps has arms longer than most of your bodies, and the way his body, that's the way he's built. He also has the perfect swim stroke, and guess what? You don't. And you don't have the body there. But yet people will do that. Same thing with Lance Armstrong. Oh, he's got a cadence of 90 to 95, and my spin class instructor says we got to hold this spin at 95. That's where things are at. No, it's not. Like, you just can't adopt blindly because you see one person does this or one person that, or like, same thing with diet. Like, so and so won this race, and you know what? He only eats celery, raisins, and walnuts at 5 p.m. every other day. The other days of the week he actually has leeks that are not dry leeks. They're actually sautéed in butter. If you do that, then you're guaranteed. Like, he did it, so it's got to work. Good God, like, but again, it's easy to adopt those things blindly because they require little to absolute no thought process as to, is that really good for me? And if it is, why is it good for me? And then if it is good for me, let's try it for a long period of time. And then also have the courage to think, you know what? I got it wrong. Maybe leaks every other day at 5 p.m. aren't the real deal for me. Maybe I need to do something else. There's a different way doing this. There's at the highest levels, like you're going to see one-offs, and that's, I think, the biggest part that people fail to understand and just blindly follow that drives me nuts is you can see 90% of elite athletes, like 90, I would say over that. I saw Steve Magnus, who's one of the top run coaches on the planet. He's like, dude, 95% of all top runners don't even like wear a Garmin or a heart rate monitor. They just run by feel. Yet, you want to look at somebody who's got like a Stride foot pod with 19 heart rate monitors strapped around every wrist of their body and think, dude, that's got to be for me. And you know what? He's vegan. And so I need to adopt all these things because again, like, we always look for the outlier to like make ourselves unique versus, the rest of the population that does it this really simplistic way that obviously works. You all can be infatuated by the scientific display that was the sub 2 hour marathon, but you probably wouldn't want to know is the whole write up on his training that he does over 80% of that at like a super chill pace and probably rarely ever wears a watch and keeps his log in a book. But you don't want to do that. We want the fanciest stuff, the outliers. We want to pick the person who won this race on on no carbs at all one time, and now this is the way to go. Yes, things can be done, but generally speaking, like, look at as many options as you have to get better. And if it's not working for you, then switch. And it might work for you, but the chance of it working you are much less than you looking at like the a million different options of things like that versus things like running, where again, like, you choose the wrong diet. Big D, you might not lose 5 or 10 pounds, or you might put on 1. The risk you take with something like running is you risk being in a boot for 6 months. There's a risk versus reward when you come to experimenting, and the amount of like hard-headedness you see with athletes and lack of patience you see with them to drive themselves in the ground and not do things slow enough, not do any things right, not work their way up to this, it's just crazy. And again, like, it's also dependent on where you are, and if you're just starting out, or if you've been through Ironman training, you've already got that durability, you can also hold on to it. Like, if you are self-coached or you have a coach, they might not always have you doing this because it's hard to maintain, because as ideal as it might not be ideal for you right now, given cycling and swimming and life and time and mental energy. And again, like, there's you have to take it all into context. And again, like, that's why you have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to ask questions. You can't just blindly follow and not let people know like exactly what's going on, because it's all taken into account. And I just read a study the other day about how like collegiate athletes, the number one factor in athletes who got injured versus non-injured, guess what it was?
Overdoing it.
Sleep.
I was going to say sleep.
Athletes who slept less than, I think, 6 hours or less a day were like 20% more likely to get injured.
Well, I buy into that one, as you know.
I know.
I will skip workouts if it's.
I know, but again, like, I know it's a lot. Like, this is definitely one of the more in-depth, like, pen to paper, get out your calculator, probably overwhelming podcast in terms of, like, getting down to the nitty-gritty in terms of getting things done the right way. But again, like, there's hopefully you found a lot of good content in here. I know it was a lot, but I just think, like, it is swimming and cycling are great and they set you up, but if you can't run well, it's almost pointless. It makes a difference in so many athletes' races and making good races or bad races. Again, I've still never had an athlete say, yeah, you know what, coach, I think I biked too slow. And I definitely would have had a better day. No, I'm glad I was patient because I was able to run well. And as it is, 3 sports in one, it's, again, like, if you're only running 2 days a week or 3 days a week and you're only getting an hour and a half in it, then break it down and get out there more and slowly create more habits to where you can sneak it in. Because again, I talked about, like, the people saying, what's the deal for like 20 minutes? Like, yeah, well, you're creating a habit, and now you're at least creating the opportunity for in 8 weeks to make that run from make that 20 to 40. You can't just skip it because you don't like to put on an extra layer of clothes and go out for 20 minutes. Like, yeah. It's and just quick side note, if you're a person who's like obsessed with brick workouts this time of year, please don't. Like, don't do it ever, really, like, very rarely, but please run before you bike this time of year. There is nothing worse for you than being on the bike and crushing your soul and being so sweaty, and then being sweaty and putting on clothes and going outdoors. You're just asking to get sick. Go run and then hop on the bike. I promise you'll thank me in March.
Well, all this stuff is really good. I think I'm the type of guy that makes a lot of these mistakes. I always have been, and I don't know why that is. I think it is difficult sometimes in society today when if you want to figure something out, you just go to YouTube and it's like, oh, there's the solution, and it's like an easy fix, and like, I need to be doing this or whatever. And also, I kind of come from an athletic background, so I kind of like take a lot of things for granted, I think. But One thing I don't do is I don't overdo it. I think, that sleep thing, and that's why I'm such a huge proponent of running. I've always been a running by feel or training by feel guy, and I think that the reason that's important is because if you go out and you're just married to numbers or married to these workouts and paces and all that kind of stuff, what happens is you start doing it on days when your body is telling you no. And that, to me, is when injuries happen, too. It's like, deep in your soul, probably, that you shouldn't be doing this, but you have to hit it because you got to hit it. And for me, it's like I'll take advantage of the days when I feel tremendous. And it's like, oh, this would be a good opportunity probably to push my body a little bit because it feels like doing that. So understanding how you feel and running by feel is so important to me.
You've always done it. And to go off that feel, there are a lot of athletes out there who just totally 100% struggle with actually knowing like that feel. And this is probably kind of a teaser, but I'm okay with that. We give out a lot of free information. Like I do for a lot of athletes when I go through these phases, like I do have them do a 5K or either a 5K, a 10K, or like a half marathon. Like if they're racing, I don't have them do like a half marathon time trial. I have them like if they do a race that's like a half marathon or like a 10K, or I can make them go do a 5K on a repeatable course. Then once you get that, I put it in a calculator and it gives me recovery run pace, easy run pace, and long run pace range. Not like 9-minute miles, but it might be like 850s to 938s. So it gives you a range, which is, again, I'm a gigantic fan of ranges because it allows for multiple outside factors, or it allows for temperature changes, elevation changes, terrain, wind, headwind or not headwind, and also how you feel. And again, so yeah, we do that. But that's it. That's all I got for today.
Wow, that's it, huh?
That's all. Yeah, that's all I got. Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, you're on fire, dude. I like that one.
Yeah. Well, I hope a couple people did, and I'm sure, well, hopefully a couple people did.
I can see people laying out phase 1 right now. But even still, it seems a little complicated. But, I mean, not really, but kind of. I mean, when you talk
about...
The
simplest things are complicated, man, because you don't we always, second guess ourselves when things are... I mean, you and I do this all the time when we do stuff. Like, we even did an email yesterday. We're like, yeah, but sometimes I think the most confusing thing about simplicity is its simplicity, because we're always drawn to more is more, and adding something or tweaking something, or we always have guys always get the extra bell and whistle makes it that more extravagant, yet it also more than likely takes away from the original purpose of what was supposed to happen or occur, or be in production, or you're showing off. It's yeah, you probably could have done a little you could have probably done a little bit less and it would have come off a lot better. But that's the struggle is keeping things simple, and again, that's the hardest, that's the most complex thing about simplicity.
I agree. Simplicity is rarely simple. Wrap it up.
Appreciate you all listening and tuning in today. We always appreciate it. If you haven't, stop on by crushingiron.com. It is the one-stop shop for all things coaching, training, gear, our blog, swim analysis. I would say camps, but one of them is sold out for next year already. We only have one slot left in the other one. So if you want that, hop on it. And yeah, if you got more questions, comments, or concerns, reach out to Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you want to reach out to me specifically, you can reach out to me, c26coach@gmail.com. And we'll check you on Monday.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot for that info. It's good stuff.
Yeah, man.